A man with a history of police reports and citations is accused of operating group homes for vulnerable adults, and those homes are allegedly filled with filthy living conditions and utilities turned off. This is Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First Investigates. I'm Sierra Cummings, and I've got investigative reporter Anastasia Olmos here. Anastasia, set this story up for us.
Well, it started with a phone call from one of the tenants. He mentioned that he lives in a group home with other disabled adults, is what he said, and they were getting evicted. And right away we hear that and we think, what can we do? We have to figure out what's going on. Reached out to the homeowner who was listed on the eviction notice that he got. Turns out it wasn't the person that was taking their rent. She was evicting the person who was taking their rent. So there's some sort of middleman going on. Went to the home to do some interviews, and turned out they had utilities shut off that morning by not the homeowner, but the middleman, who said he was, shutting them off. They were leaving, but he hadn't paid rent that month to the homeowner. And the whole thing is confusing. They ended up calling police while we were there because these tenants, one of them who is wheelchair bound with prosthetic legs, they had nowhere to go. They didn't have, it was so hot outside, no utilities. And so police arrive, and then that middleman, his name is Charles Pruitt, who was taking the rent money for those living in this home, 4 adults in this home, he shows up with a U-Haul to move them. This is how the story starts, but fast forward almost 2 months and several records requests to several different agencies. We found that what happened at this home wasn't a one-off. This had been going on for more than a decade, and he had gotten in trouble for it before for operating without a business license, according to records, and several investigations. And so here is that story.
So you're evicting everybody from this property?
Yes.
How did you come to live in this house?
I was at a mental hospital facility. I tried to commit suicide.
I didn't know that it was a guy in there with no legs and no bed.
We all paid rent.
We all paid bills, sir.
Are you Charles? My name is Anastasia Olmos. I'm with Atlanta News First Investigates.
So our office received a complaint about this thing being a assisted living.
Do you have a license to be running a group home here?
I want the facilities to take responsibility.
Please get away from my car. Please move.
I have nowhere else to go.
There's no power. There's no water.
The water and the electricity was both turned off today.
Atlanta News First Investigates met Neo White outside of this Stockbridge house as he and others with disabilities were getting evicted from what they say was a group home.
I happened to see a yellow notice on the door, and it was an eviction notice from the court.
Only the eviction wasn't from the man they say they were paying. You figured out that rent had not been paid to the actual homeowner?
Correct.
Mary Brown is the homeowner who tells us she's been renting to the man they've been paying, Charles Pruitt.
I didn't know that he was considering it a group home, and I didn't know the environment that was going on in the home.
Mary says she gave Charles 60 days to move out so her family member could move in. But then she says he stopped paying rent. And when she went to serve the eviction notice,
They let me come in and everything, and I saw bugs on the wall as soon as I came in.
Mary says a double amputee tenant was in a room with no bed and no working lights. She found his bed with others on the back porch. Tenants told Atlanta News First Investigates they had bed bugs. And that morning, water and power were off.
It's very heartbreaking. I feel sorry for the people on the inside.
Mary says Charles has been renting the house for 4 years. Tenants said they pay him $750 in cash every month. How does that add up?
It's like $3,000 some odd a month for 4 people, and then he only pays me $1,600.
2 tenants told us they were referred to Charles from a previous personal care home and a mental health hospital.
I was sleeping outside in the cold and the rain, homeless. After getting discharged out of the mental hospital facility, I told them I had nowhere else to go, and that's when they told me about Charles.
Under Georgia eviction law, the tenants didn't have to immediately move out, but renters law also prohibits a landlord from shutting off utilities. What are you going to do?
Honestly, I don't know, because I have nowhere else to go.
Mary says Charles turned off the utilities and told Neo to call police for help.
Camera recording started.
How much do you pay?
The guy, I
Yeah.
paid him $750.
$750 and cash.
I paid him in cash.
Inside the house, other tenants told the officer the same thing. They paid Charles, not Mary.
We all paid.
We all paid
He
up,
ain't
so
paid. We don't give her rent.
just
We give it to him.
this property. So he's the middleman.
Yeah.
When the tenants get Charles on the phone, we can hear him tell the officer that the utilities were shut off early. He was planning to move the tenants the next day. Within an hour, Charles and his wife arrived with a U-Haul. Hi, are you Charles? Are you Charles? At first, he wouldn't answer our questions. Do you have a license to be running a group home here? What did you do with their rent money for the month?
I just closed on a house.
You bought a house with their rent money? And when we asked if that would also be a group home, Charles took 3 of the tenants but left Neo. When police asked him about Neo's money, Charles initially said he never paid him.
He said that he paid you money to pay the homeowner for the rent.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
He came here with no money.
When the officer asks again, Charles' wife sticks to the first answer and Charles changes it.
Did he pay you any kind of money?
He gave me, what, $60 when he got his check.
Ultimately, police told Neo it's a civil dispute. As for the alleged group home operation, Georgia law requires business licenses from the Secretary of State, and group homes require county permits in residential zoning. If it's a personal care home providing assistance, it requires a license from the Georgia Department of Community Health, also known as DCH. Do you have other group homes as well?
Please get away from my car. He's little.
Charles did not answer our questions regarding having a business license or permits to operate group homes.
You had some stupid questions.
What started as one eviction at one home turned into a paper trail spanning more than a decade. 8 state investigations, 16 police and code enforcement complaints, and 9 different addresses.
You got more houses? He had another house down the street, and we shut that one down because it's just unsanitary. He had people living in really bad conditions.
The record starts in 2014 when the Georgia Department of Community Health and Clayton County jointly investigated 2 homes in a Conley neighborhood. DCH substantiated allegations that Charles was operating personal care homes. The report states because tenants required assistance with medication. Charles pleaded no contest to both code violations operating a business without a license and paid $250 fines for each citation, according to court records. Over the next 4 years, the county cited and fined him at least 5 more homes for similar allegations. He paid a total of $2,800 in fines and was placed on probation. One DCH report in this time describes a chain and a lock on the refrigerator, the front door wrapped in plastic bags, and 3 residents and a staff member who all, quote, appeared to have mental health issues. The report names Charles Pruitt as the owner or leaseholder of the home. When DCH tried to call him, the number was disconnected, according to the 2018 report. DCH closed the complaint, quote, unable to substantiate the allegation. And yet, records show the allegations continue. A 2023 police report at the same Stockbridge home where we met him states a blind man in a wheelchair called police because he says he was supposed to be in an assisted living home, but it was just a room. The man also reported the home to DCH. A state investigator went to the house, and according to the report, they left after 10 minutes, noting there was a dog loose on the property and no one there to speak to. The complaint was closed as, quote, unsubstantiated. But the paper trail doesn't stop there. Also in 2023, a police officer looking for a missing person noted in his report that Piedmont Henry emergency room staff had a resource list for patients that listed, quote, Charles Pruitt personal care homes. We did not find that business registered or licensed in the state of Georgia. Piedmont Hospitals did not respond to Atlanta News First investigates multiple inquiries on protocols for vetting its hospital resource lists. In 2024, code enforcement condemned a home in Ellenwood that Charles was renting for safety violations. Adult Protective Services assisted in relocating the tenants, and Record State law enforcement removed Charles, who claimed he lived down the street. Less than half a mile down the street at the other home, records show similar complaints and investigations by the county and DCH.
Charles Pruitt took my money. My mom came.
Charles, what's his last name?
Pruitt.
Okay.
Police body camera footage from July 2025 shows an officer respond to the house where a tenant claims Charles is kicking him out over an alleged dispute with the house manager. The man claims Charles called his probation officer, who then said he had to leave.
My probation officer in Cobb County, she told me I had 7 days to leave his residence.
That's not how that works. I don't care what your probation officer said. I don't care what anybody said.
At least 2 tenants said they had been referred to the home by their probation officers, according to police footage.
I just got out of jail.
Okay.
I'm not trying to go back.
The officer ultimately reported the home to code enforcement, referencing, quote, poor living conditions, home for at-risk adults. She submitted photos that show part of the ceiling missing, exposed ductwork, mold, a broken oven door, and the refrigerator chained with a lock. The officer also reported it to Adult Protective Services. Of the total 24 complaints, reports, and investigations between the county and state, we could only confirm the fines for citations for operating without a business license from 2014 to 2019. Most complaints were either closed as unfounded or dismissed when Charles requested a jury trial. The only business we found licensed with DCH under Charles Pruitt is an adult day center with 15 beds in Stockbridge called New Novus Corp. So this is the 3rd time we've been to this business during business hours, and it hasn't been open. I did speak with a nearby business that tells us he has never seen it open. We followed up with Charles asking about all of the allegations, as well as county and state investigations listed in this story. He did not respond. As for the displaced residents, what are you going to do?
Honestly, I don't know, because I have nowhere else to go.
I want the facilities to take responsibility when they are placing these people and make sure that they do background checks or go visit the facility just because they're vulnerable.
He's little.
Do you think that the county or the state should stop this?
Absolutely. If he continues to do this, then it's going to affect more people.
Mary, the Stockbridge homeowner, she let Neo stay in the house for a few weeks, but he's still looking for permanent housing. We could not get any information on specific cases from Adult Protective Services, but when we asked DCH about their investigations and what came of the 2 2014 substantiated personal care home allegations, they said they sent Charles a cease and desist letter and notified Clayton County Community Development. Now, Clayton County records show Charles had 5 county-level business licenses from 2015 to 2020. 3 of them were issued at homes after they received citations. Charles has not been convicted of any crimes related to these facilities other than the code violations from 2014 to 2019 for operating without a business license. We will continue investigating. I'm Anastasia Olmos. Atlanta News First investigates.
Stassi, what makes this story so compelling is that these residents are vulnerable adults. And so, they're looking for help, and now they're in this situation where help seems to be difficult to find. Any updates as of today, as of this recording, with those displaced residents?
So in that very first story of Stockbridge, the home that we were at, Charles Pruitt ended up taking 3 of the residents with him in that U-Haul to apparently a home that he had just bought. We do not know where that is or if it has a business license or anything like that. But as far as Neo White, he did stay in the home until that eviction was finalized. Mary Brown had the utilities turned back on, so he was able to stay. But he does live paycheck to paycheck with the disability payment. And so he does stay in hotels until that money runs out, and then he's, on the streets. And so he is looking for more permanent housing, but a lot of this really stems around a population that has a hard time finding permanent housing because they don't make 3 times the rent, or there aren't affordable places that they'll be able to live off of with just a disability check or a social security check. And so it's this population where maybe they have something on their background, maybe an eviction, maybe a crime or something. And so it is really hard to find housing. Reaching out to some of the nonprofits in the area to see if they could help. you got to get on a list and things like that. And so right now, Neo is looking for permanent housing.
Yeah, it's not an ideal situation because he would be an applicant that would maybe have some red flags to corporate landlords. So it really is like this catch-22 here. It's a good get, Mary Brown, to have her in this story, because if she wasn't in the story, I'd be like, well, what does the actual homeowner have to say about this? So I thought it was really important to have her in the story. Naturally, though, I have a follow-up question. She's saying she didn't know Charles was allegedly treating this like a group home. I went, well, did she not show up to the house? Were there no check-ins?
Well, so do you usually have a check-in from your landlord? There are, laws that allow you to have the home, and your homeowner, your landlord, cannot come in without telling you, hey, I'm coming to service the AC or something like that. So a normal check-in wouldn't necessarily be lawful. She can't just, come in. But she did know that he was subletting the rooms. She actually, in this home, prior to this renting to Charles Pruitt, she did house elderly people there, but she ended up in a sort of a care home, but she ended up closing it because she said she couldn't find the staff to run such a home. And so when she, had met Charles and turned over to him, he was going to rent out the rooms. She said that she did not know the conditions that they were living in, and she did not know that he was considering it this group home who was getting referrals from hospitals. That is a certain level of care that she was not aware of. And when she went in that home and to see someone with, as she says, no legs, living with no bed, she just couldn't even fathom how that could be. And she would not have known if she did not go serve that eviction and Neo White allowing her to come into the house, because the tenant has to approve and allow a landlord inside.
Police call this a civil matter. So what recourse do these residents have?
Oh, being there and watching it kind of unfold really in real time, and then we requested that body cam footage to see kind of what the conversations the police were having, that we couldn't hear, and that's when you see that body cam footage with police talking to Charles Pruitt and his wife, and they're saying, well, he didn't pay us. Well, he paid us $60, and, what they're telling police officers versus what the tenants are telling police officers. And then we heard police actually call, the officer calls his supervisor, and he explains the situation to his supervisor. And what we gathered from that was he didn't even really understand what was going on at the house or what to do about it. It almost seemed like he was in training. And he tells his supervisor that Charles Pruitt lives at the house. And he doesn't. He's renting out the rooms. And so Charles is saying the property owner, Mary, can't be there. She can't be there per court order. She can't be there. And the officer is confused, saying, well, he says you can't be here. Well, it's her home. Neo White is a tenant in the home, and he invited her to the property to do this interview with us. So she can be there because she was invited by a tenant. Yet the officer is believing Pruitt because he says he has some sort of court order that she can't be at the home. And so you just see this whole thing play out where the officer doesn't really know what to do. Another officer comes, which probably is the manager of some sort on, the shift that he's on, and he's telling him, well, take a report, take his statement. If he said that he paid, take his statement. And you can tell, he's trying to get all sides of the story into the report, but at the end of it, they say it's a civil dispute because this is something that has to go to court and for a judge or even a jury to listen to and decide if there is money owed back to Neo or some sort of landlord-tenant dispute. What are the contracts? What was the payment? And the other thing is that there is no paper trail, and the officer says that. He says there's no paper trail. I have no proof of anything that they paid him. Nothing. And we couldn't get that either. I mean, when you think about even just these tenants talking to me was a big deal. You see me talking to them on the porch there in that video. They didn't want to go on camera because they don't want to lose their housing. It is just overall a really sad situation.
So, simply put, this could take a lot of time and money to fight if they did want to fight this civilly.
Well, here's the thing. You look at court records and follow up with that eviction, it has been closed. Pruitt tried to argue in an answer to the eviction saying she kept harassing us. She was coming to the property and she was not allowed to be there. And when it came time for court, the judge essentially said, they're out. They've left the home. All right, done. Now, Neo could essentially take some sort of legal action to try to get his money back, but he has no proof of a lease, of an agreement, of the payment, of a receipt. It's, what to pay the court costs, to pay even if you need some legal defense.
It's really hard. It's really hard in that kind of case. Okay, so there are a lot of agencies that are involved in a situation like this, but one of the big state oversight agencies is the Georgia Department of Community Health. Has that agency commented on your reporting?
So we started this, as I mentioned, several months ago. It has been so hard to get the records from every single agency. I actually drove to each courthouse and each police department trying to get the records, just to see if I can connect what's going on. And when it came to Department of Community Health, eventually, once I got the records, I had so many questions. For instance, why was an investigator going to a house, there's, nobody home, leaves a business card on the garage that was in one of the reports, and leaves, comes back a couple days later, sees the business card still there, and closes the report. In this instance, they had been to this exact house in Stockbridge 2-3 years prior, and they said, well, there was a canine loose on the property. You see the dog in the story. Quite frankly, one of the most friendliest pit bulls I've ever encountered, just roaming around, and then they said no one was home, stayed 10 minutes, and then closed the report. So we reached out to DCH asking, explain how this, why is that protocol? Just because no one's there, you close the report? They didn't answer those questions. They just told me, this is what we did. And so in these cases, what they did is they referred it to a county office, the name is escaping me, of community development. So they refer it to, say, it's the Henry County Office of Community Development. I don't necessarily know what
role they even play.
What role they play, but when you look at where the fines come from in the past, in 2014, 2015, 2019, those fines come from community development. So I'm thinking there's some sort of regulatory court process where you can get that fine, executed versus what a DCH does. Now, another thing that I hope is apparent in the story and clear is that DCH will only investigate if it is a personal care home complaint, because that deals with some sort of medical help, assistance, administering medicine. They need 24-hour care. They can't, walk, whatever it might be. That is a personal care home providing that assistance. That is something that needs a license at the very top state level. The tenants that we met in Stockbridge didn't seem to need that level of care. They told me that they take care of themselves. They just pay for a room. It's not that type of situation. But when DCH receives these complaints, they do go and investigate. We just want to know that they are investigating and they are doing due diligence, because many of these reports were from very vulnerable people.
We know you'll stay on top of it, because at the core of this story, it is housing. It's a conversation about housing, and that resonates with so many people in our community. So excellent job reporting there, Stassi.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First Investigates. For more on this story, go to atlantanewsfirst.com and click on the A&F Investigates tab. You can listen to more award-winning investigations wherever you get your podcasts by searching Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First. And tune in Sundays for an hour-long episode of Uncovered, where we highlight some of our biggest investigations that impact our communities.